When somebody fails a drug test and gets stripped after winning a competition, you know your boy Anabolic Climbing is going to come here and break it all down for you. What's going on, guys? Adam here, and best believe when I stumbled across this, and I was trying to find this actually for the last couple months, I got super giddy. So if you're new here and you're interested in talking about the pharmacology of all of those crazy climbers failing the drug tests, don't forget to like and subscribe. And without further ado, what happened? Where did this happen? What did these guys take? Should I be taking it? Let's jump into it. So we're talking about Pavel Batushev and also Paulina Abukarova, both of whom failed drug tests for meldonium. What is meldonium? Well, honestly, one of the most interesting compounds I've ever researched. A lot of this is getting put on the back of a video from Vigorous Steve. If you watch this channel and you're not watching Vigorous Steve, I don't know what to tell you. Honestly, one of like the godfathers of PEDs in the online space. But meldonium is a super fascinating compound and was also really prominent in a lot of the doping scandals in the mid-2010s. So 2014 through 2017, you saw a lot of folks pop for that, including tennis star Maria Sharapova. So how common was it in the doping scene? Well, in the Baku European Games from 2015, 8.7% of the athletes failed for meldonium metabolites, which is pretty rampant. But like, what is it? Why were they taking it? And was this really such a powerful driver of performance that it would get athletes to win? So before we talk about the performance enhancing effects, I want to talk about Pavel Batushev for a second. He hadn't won a competition, I believe, since So from 2010 to 2011, he was winning a couple of comps here and there, and didn't have another win until he got banned in 2017. So it definitely seems like the meldonium did a lot to help make up for his performance and give him that boost. And what is it, you ask? Well, it's a heart and blood pressure medication developed in Russia. From what I could tell, it is pretty cardiac protective, helps with lowering blood pressure. But the mechanisms that it works on are some of the craziest things that I have ever read about. So, if you've watched any of my other content, you'll know that one of my favorite compounds and the first thing I ever injected was L-carnitine. I love it for its assistance with lipolysis. It helps with fatty acid oxidation. But like, why am I talking about carnitine in a meldonium video? Well, that's because meldonium actually like inhibits the enzyme for carnitine transferase and GBB, which are involved in the fatty acid oxidation. So it basically shuts down the process that carnitine is used for. And it actually alters the balance between glucose and fatty acid oxidation in cells, both shifting ATP synthesis towards glucose and away from fats. And it also reduces the formation of TMAO metabolic waste, and that is actually one of the main drivers in preventing atherosclerosis as well as congestive heart failure. So basically, by shifting the metabolic processes toward carbs and glucose and away from the fatty acid oxidation, that actually is what is the driver of lowering the blood pressure. And you're thinking like, okay, it's blood pressure medication, maybe that has a positive impact. Well, it also increases the efficiency of oxygen utilization in the cells, and therefore actually helps with delaying onset fatigue during endurance sports. So yeah, pretty darn potent. By the way, obviously WADA banned since we're talking about a drug test, but also just like a really interesting compound for just shifting what it would take from like a dietary perspective. So in general, a high-fat diet on meldonium is a really bad idea. Probably cap it at about 50 grams of fat a day, and really try to get as many omega-3s in there if that's what you're using it for. And really, I think the sugar diet is a meme for like a whole bunch of reasons, even though it has a mechanism of action. But if you were to run the sugar diet, I honestly can't think of anything that would go better with it than meldonium. Those two would go together like peanut butter and jelly. Don't do the sugar diet. Don't do meldonium. But if you were gonna, that's probably the time and place. Dosing for this is 250 milligrams to up to a gram a day, 30 to 60 minutes pre-workout. If you're taking it on rest days, I believe it's taken 250 milligrams a day, 4 times a day. Half-life is 3 hours to 15 hours, but the clearance time on it is pretty long. I think 2 or 3 weeks for all the metabolites to leave your system. And it only seems to increase aerobic capacity for as long as you're taking it. So I don't think this is one of those things that you could ramp in the off season and then try to come in and use this in competition. I wouldn't advise against it. Also, considering how much WADA is on the lookout for something like this, it would not surprise me if they've tried to extend the metabolite detection for meldonium. And, you know, rock climbers are pretty lean in general, but a lot of these metabolites are stored in fat cells. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they had longer detection times for something as flagrant as meldonium. But super cool. Other things that you should not use when taking meldonium. Well, obviously L-carnitine is out of the question. So is rosylene or yohimbine. Any cardarine or any beta-adrenergic fat burners, which are your clenbuterol, your albuterol, please keep those away, even though I know if you're a rock climber, you're not really taking any of this except for potentially cardarine, in which case I'd still look at you weird. But those are essentially some of your options. And they usually don't have folks dose this for longer than 3 weeks. It seems to be 3 weeks on, a minimum of 3 weeks off. So in what context as a non-drug tested climber could you justify using this? Big walling could be super cool. If you were running speed records, super obvious choice. But honestly, you could potentially use it for sport climbing or speed climbing as well. I wouldn't justify it on the speed wall for obvious reasons, but you know, if you're projecting something hard outside, it would definitely make some sense to leverage a compound like this. Personally, if I were going pretty darn crazy, upping toward endurance, I feel like SLUPP 332 is more tolerable for an extended period of time, but there's probably more data on meldonium than there is on Sloopy, and even though, and honestly probably more tangible benefits to meldonium, I just feel like so one of the side effects is it could potentially lower blood pressure too much. And also just the idea of changing your energy system versus enhancing it with like mitochondrial support that you get in Sloopy. This feels really spooky to me. But again, we're going most of the research is coming from the pharmacy that developed it, which was also Russian based. So like, and also not FDA approved at all in the West from my understandings. So unless you're trying to source this from China or India, you're not going to be able to get this in most Western countries. Do I think it could have application for hard projecting? Probably. I'm probably not going to run that test unless I get super into sport climbing, but there are folks that have run it to great effect. The fact that this guy basically went on a 5-year drought of medals and then did so well that he won and then got DQed says a lot for the efficacy of this compound. And elite ice climbing is no joke. So I definitely think it's worth considering as a compound to really push limits for a sport climber or someone doing long and fast projects, or at least hard projects. Anyway, if this was interesting to you, if you guys were super stoked about another drug test failure and learning about some non-anabolics that we saw in competition, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to try to find some other endurance boosters for us too. I know I'm largely a boulderer, but you know, anything that can be effective in the climbing community, I think it's worth having a discussion about pharmacologically. So, as always, I am Adam with Anabolic Climbing, giving you a front double on the way out. Wishing you guys happy sending, happy training, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, you guys.